Third question is, where does it stop? If we say that marriage is not necessarily about male or female, husband or wife, mother and father, then why is it necessarily just about two people? Andrew Sullivan, probably one of the most articulate spokespeople for the same-sex marriage proposition, had this to say. He says, "The right to marry whomever you want is a fundamental civil right." Think about that. The right to marry whomever you want is a fundamental civil right. Andrew Sullivan is a very smart man, and he's actually smarter than this. But what he's saying is, whatever you want to enter into and call it marriage, you have a civil right to do that. I would ask Andrew Sullivan, what about Cody Rogan and Jonathan Yarbrough? Whenever we bring up this issue of same-sex marriage could lead to polygamy, they say, oh, you're ridiculous, that's a red herring, you're just trying to fill up the argument with unnecessary smoke and confuse people. So I ask them, what about Cody Rogan and Jonathan Yarbrough? Who are those gentlemen? Not a whole lot of people know who they are, but they should. Because on May 17th, 2004, they were the first couple to stand in line in Provincetown, Massachusetts, to get the first same-sex marriage license handed out there. And because they were the first couple standing in line, the media was very interested in talking to them. And as the media talked to them, here's what they learned. Cody Rogan and Jonathan Yarbrough told the press that we believe we can have an open marriage. We believe that we can love more than one person at a time. And we intend to do that in our new marriage. Now, a couple of points here before I go on to my final point. Think about this. Think about any husband and wife couple who shows up to get married, and they're asking the couple about their big day. And the groom says, you know what, I'm excited to be getting married, but I plan on keeping my options open, kind of going to continue to date around a little bit. You know, that is an individual with a wholly different idea of marriage than most of us have. But that is exactly what these two gentlemen said on their wedding day. Okay? But here's the big question. What are we going to say to Jonathan Yarbrough and Cody Rogan when they widen their circle of love and want to bring their other love interests into their relationship? Are we really going to be able to tell them, well, I'm sorry, marriage is only about two people? No. Once you let that horse out of the barn, there's no way to stop it. There is no logical stopping point. This question was asked of Cheryl Jakes, the former executive director of the Human Rights Campaign. Said, Cheryl, how come same-sex marriage will not lead to polygamy? And here's what she said. It's a stunning answer. She said, because I don't approve of that. Because I don't approve of that. All of us can now rest assured that same-sex marriage will not lead to polygamy because Cheryl Jakes doesn't approve of that. Well, here's the question. Cheryl, how come your because I don't approve of that objection to polygamous marriage is more reasonable, more thoughtful than my I don't believe in that objection to same-sex marriage? You can't have it both ways. Again, once we say that there's no real definition to marriage, then marriage becomes everything and marriage becomes nothing. Where does it stop? Full acceptance will be mandatory. Folks, we tolerate same-sex relationships today. I have never met a same-sex marriage activist who complains about friends of theirs meeting, setting up a relationship, moving into a neighborhood, buying a house, going to Home Depot on the weekends to get all the things to set up their house, and then weeks later we're run out of the neighborhood on a rail, saying we don't tolerate that kind of thing here. You know what? The American people are pretty tolerant. They have tolerance. We have tolerance now. But what this is about is full acceptance. You, every one of you, will fully value the same-sex family as equal to the heterosexual family. And if you don't, there will be problems. Let's look at the way this works itself out. Speech control will be next. There's a Swedish pastor not too long ago preaching a sermon in his church from the scriptures in the Bible that talk about the nature of homosexuality. Some homosexual activists in Sweden got word of the sermon that he preached. They weren't in church that day, but they just heard about it, and they turned him into the authorities. He was called in for questioning, and he was threatened with months in jail. Threatened with months in jail, not for doing anything to anybody, not for hurting anybody, for simply saying something. Canadian activists, months after passing same-sex marriage in a number of provinces in Canada, passed Bill C-250. What is Bill C-250? Bill C-250 is a bill that says that if you say things that could be seen as hurtful to homosexuals, you could spend time in jail. Go to jail if you say the wrong thing. That's just north of our border, not very far from here. It's interesting. The statement, children need a mother and a father, could be deemed hate speech. And not long ago, just this week in fact, Massachusetts Governor Mitt Romney was taken to task by the Boston Globe because he had the audacity to say that children need a mother and a father. And the Boston Globe said that that was divisive hate speech and that he was wrong for saying that. Hate speech for saying that children need a mother and a father. Folks, that is the world that is not some distance off. That's the world we live in right now. It's happening right now. Speech control is next. It's here. What's in store for our children in schools? Heather has 2 mommies in K through 12. They will be teaching the homosexual family as normal, as natural, as a regular part of life, starting in kindergarten. Pictures and storylines in school books will be changed, not just in the sociology books, not just in the health books. Your children's readers, they'll come home with their little readers, and Sally will be going to the duck pond with her 2 dads holding hands. It's interesting to think about. When little Sally gets to the duck pond with her 2 dads, what will she find? She'll find male and female ducks paired up there. They're not going to be able to work it out of everything because nature is something that we just cannot get away from. But folks, that's what we're going to see. Let me tell you again exactly what is happening in Boston schools now. May 17th, 2004, Massachusetts legalized same-sex marriage. And it wasn't long until they started putting this into the schools. National Public Radio, no conservative news source to be sure, ran this story about what was happening in Boston public schools and Massachusetts public schools. It says that gay and lesbian advocates are working on a new gay-friendly curriculum for kindergarten and up. And it also talks about a teacher there, an 8th grade teacher, her name's Deb Allen, and it talks about what she is teaching young kids. It says that she is teaching 8th graders in her class with thoroughly explicit charts what lesbian and gay sex is like. It's what the article says right here. Thoroughly and explicit charts and graphs, what gay sex is like. And now when families and parents object to that kind of thing, here's what she tells them. Give me a break, it's legal now. Give me a break, it's legal now. Folks, that is what we are up against. It's happening now, and it's happening in a very short period of time. The impact on religious freedom. Churches will be forced to perform same-sex weddings. And here's how it's going to happen. My opponents, our opponents on the other side say, oh, no, we're not going to force churches to perform these weddings. We just simply want the right to be able to marry if we want. Well, here's what's going to happen. There are going to be couples that go to XYZ Baptist Church or Presbyterian Church on the corner and sit down with a pastor and say, we'd like to get married in your church. And the pastor's going to say, I'm very, very sorry, but we don't believe in that kind of marriage here, so no. They're going to go straight down to the ACLU office and they're going to ask the question, does ABC, Presbyterian or Baptist Church on the corner, get tax-exempt status from the federal government? ACLU is going to say yes. Well, then how come the government is underwriting discrimination when they wouldn't marry us? And the church is going to have problems. There's a story in Canada that I read just a couple of weeks ago where a lesbian couple rented a Knights of Columbus hall at a Catholic church to have their wedding. Knights of Columbus does that. They rent out their halls to people who are getting married. They want as many people to get married as possible, so they're into that business. When they found out that it was a lesbian couple, surprise, I'm sorry, we'd really like to not rent our hall out to you because we don't really believe in that kind of marriage. The lesbian couple didn't say, oh, we understand. We don't want to offend your religious sensibilities. They're suing the Knights of Columbus to make them extend their hall to them to do something that they don't believe. It's happening, folks. It's happening. Thought control, educational control, and religious control. This is not pie in the sky. It's not smoke screen. It's happening.